a 300% increase over 18 months. Sounds pretty good. Yeah, not bad. We got something that's better, 900%. So we're going to get into that. So Matt talked right off the beginning about knowing your customer, knowing who they are, where they've come from, what they're interested in, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But how do you do that naturally? How do you communicate with them organically? And how do you do it effectively? So we're going to talk with Elisa Haidt, who's the Director of Marketing at TripIt, and we're going to talk with Gordon Evans, VP of Product at Salesforce. Salesforce, you all know. TripIt, does everybody know TripIt? Who knows TripIt? What is TripIt?
Well, TripIt is a travel app that organizes travel. So for those that use it, you know that you can forward your travel plans, any confirmation to plans@tripit.com, and we'll organize everything into one master itinerary. And then TripIt Pro is the premium product where we'll alert you of gate changes, flight delays, and pretty much take the stress out of your travel. It's really our goal in making things easier when you travel.
Cool. So now that we know what TripIt is, let's talk a little bit, set a little bit of context for some of the things you're going to talk about, like Gordon's going to talk about. What are your marketing goals? What do you need to do at TripIt?
Yeah, so obviously we are dealing with a lot of people who travel. A lot of them travel for business. And our goals really are to be with them along that, literally that trip that they're on, but it's a journey with them. So from the minute they install the app and register for our service, we want to help educate and engage with them, onboard them to the product, and then be with them when they travel. This can be, sending them the alerts, keeping them on top of their plans, and we want to be with them at milestones, their anniversary with us, their entire journey throughout using our product.
So in other words, it's a typical mobile and web app. You need to onboard people, you need to acquire users, you need to delight them with your service, you need to get them through various hoops, and eventually get them to a premium version.
Yep.
Very similar to a lot of things that I'm sure a lot of people are doing as well. So I mentioned the 900%. You did a promotion that was you got a 900% better return on, better conversion on than anything you've done before. That's what kind of caught our eye actually for this session. And actually the interesting part here is it wasn't a one-time event.
Right.
It wasn't, once and done. It's an ongoing thing in the life of the company, in the life of a user's experience with the app. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So I mentioned that it's really about the journey that we're on with the customer. And we have customers who have been with us for just a month and people who have been with us for years. And we decided that for the people using TripIt, our TripIt service, at their 1-year anniversary, why not celebrate that milestone with them? And so we drafted a really nice email that wished them a happy anniversary and talked about relationships like ours were worth celebrating together. And we gave them the gift of Pro. It was a 2-month free trial. And we saw a 900% increase. So for users who were with us for 12 months or older, the spike in those people, 12 months or older, who started using our premium product grew 900%. And that was something where we put it in market, we saw that spike, our analytics team came running down the hallway like, what happened this month? So it was pretty exciting, but it's sustained, which is nice. And that's really due to automation and using this data. We know that these are people who never tried Pro, they've been with us a year, they've taken a trip, and we put this program into market and saw great results.
So what's interesting for me in that is that it's something that kind of feels natural. It's something that kind of feels, it's not something you created out of thin air. It is a natural thing in terms of what the customer is experiencing with your app, with your service, and a little taste of what they could get as well. Mm-hmm. Gordon, when we talked about that before, you talked about how it's not episodic, how a lot of marketing, we look at episodes, we look at conversions, we look at a sale, we look at click-through or something like that. But the marketing isn't episodic. In fact, it's a journey. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. I think there's still a lot of value around campaigns at a point in time. Like, I'm sure everyone are thinking about their Labor Day travel plans. Many of you are probably using TripIt to plan that big travel weekend, but that is only one point in time of the overall customer journey that you might go on with a company like TripIt this year. And so being able to think about 4 things, about what do we know about our consumers, how much data do we have about them, where are they in relationship to us. Are they using the free product? Are they using Pro? Are they about to have their anniversary? How we're thinking, and then 3, how we're thinking about nurturing them through those engagements over a long journey, a long life cycle, not just one campaign. And then, of course, optimizing the results and measuring those things over time. So really thinking about this not just as a sort of a campaign strategy anymore, but really thinking about journey management as the new way marketers should think about engaging with their consumers.
Interesting. And that obviously maximizes customer lifetime value, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because it's funny, isn't it? Like the story that Elisa just related is a very simple concept, acknowledging somebody on their anniversary of the relationship, just like you would do in real life to your friends. But it generated amazing results, right? From a very simple concept.
Clearly I need some technology to remember anniversaries in my life. I've gotten in trouble there before. So, Elisa, we had this funny moment on the call when we were kind of prepping for this, and you're talking about some of the things that you did in testing. You do some A/B testing, you do some multivariate testing of messages, subject line, images, offers, those sorts of things. Anything, some of the things that you would do in any of your campaigns or offers. And I asked, by the way, you have about 10 million users. Probably should have mentioned that off the top. You'll see it. There's a lot of people there. So I was wondering, well, how many do you need to send that to in order to, know with some sort of statistical reliability that, I've got it right? And you said, well, I'm not sure. Talk to me about that a little bit.
I said I'm not sure because it really depends on what is the purpose of that email and to who you're sending it. So to Gordon's point, what is the size of the audience we're targeting? Is it people who have traveled with us 6 or more times? Is it people who have traveled with us 12 or more times in the past year? How long have they been with us? Which product are they using? Really determines the size of the sample we're going to send this email to. So there's no hard number, but thankfully to tools like the A/B testing within ExactTarget, which is what we use, we're able to always test, whether it be subject line. It really also depends what you're testing. Subject lines sometimes take smaller sample size to get a result than testing a time of day, perhaps, that you're sending it.
Right, and the cool thing was that the tool you're using, it knew the right sample size.
Right, it'll tell you once it's conclusive, and I think a lot of you probably are very familiar with A/B testing, but we can choose to send 10% one, subject line, and 10% another. Once we're told what's conclusive, then the 80% gets the winning one.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So Gordon, brands like TripIt, they might have 10 million customers. They might get data on them hourly from email, from web use, from mobile use, those sorts of things. Other brands have hundreds of millions of users. Talking about volume of data versus quality of data, and what that means for what marketers do, and how you make decisions based on that.
Well, I think we're all sitting on a big pile of data, right? We have access to more and more data than ever before. And if you think about everything from simple things like email open rates all the way through to what mobile device are they on and what time of day and how should that impact my email segmentation and send strategy, we have tons of data available to us. I think the trick is also not to forget the consumer experience of engaging in those communications with the brand. I was talking to a really large retail client of ours down in South America the other day, and he said, we have all this data where we know what people are doing and what they're expecting. We're kind of drowning in it all. So I think it's important to use as much data as possible, but then think about the customer experience. Like the retailer related this story. When people get married, they come into our store and they need certain products, they're thinking about certain things. How do we think about that from the consumer experience and craft a journey that puts those goods and services in front of them, and then back out what is the data to support that customer experience?
Interesting. Do you ever have too much data, Elisa?
I don't ever think there's too much, but I think you have to be very smart in how you use it. So I always like to say, like, you don't want to be creepy. You want to use the data to really, as Gordon said, put yourself in the shoes of the customer. Is this something they're going to want to hear from you? Is this something they find helpful? And we really want to delight our customers when they're using TripIt. We want to make their lives a little bit easier. when they're traveling. And so, I do think they love, getting an alert before perhaps an airline gives them one. And that's a great use of data because we know where they're flying, we know what airline they're on, and that sort of thing. But don't want to use it in a way where it's going to cause them to
the
wonder.
experience that TripIt creates builds that loyalty, because I know I travel a ton, and I get the TripIt updates before I get the updates from my airline that I'm flying on. And so that kind of relationship, the immediacy and the accuracy of the communication based on the data is really powerful from a consumer perspective.
Interesting. So when you have a ton of data, I was reading something by Noah Kagan the other day, and he was saying that one was building one of his recent companies. They focused on exactly one KPI, because there were a million they could have chose from. They said this one will determine our success or failure. I think that was relevant to actually how he learned it from Mark Zuckerberg, actually. Does that seem too extreme to you? How many key KPIs do you have?
Well, again, it really depends on what we're sending and what our message is and what we're doing. So if we're looking for engagement, we're going to look for metrics for an email, for instance, for open and engagement with that email. If we are looking for conversions to pro, that's going to be our key KPI. So it really depends, again, on what is the purpose of what we're doing. But I think we always try and lead with one so we can focus our efforts. And then there's obviously supporting KPIs that guide us.
Excellent, cool. Maybe, Elisa, I'll ask you for a couple of actionable takeaways that can really help other technology-assisted marketers drive conversions and engagement.
Sure. Yeah, well, I think we've both talked about it today, but I think everyone probably, as consumers, to always put yourself in the shoes of the consumer and think about their experience with you. I mean, you can set up a customer journey, and you can do a lot of testing along the way, but it's also good to think of yourself as the customer and the journey that they're on, and identify that way. I kind of already said the don't be creepy advice. I like to always think about that because we want to help people with how we use the data. And then also I always have something called the so what test that I like to think about when I'm sending an email or putting out push notifications. But if a consumer gets this, are they going to say, so what? Why is this relevant to me? Or are they going to be excited to receive this? And really, I think one of the guiding principles for engagement marketing is that it has to pass that test. The consumer has to not wonder why they're getting this, but understand why they got it and be excited to receive those messages.
Cool. Gordon, when we were chatting earlier, we talked almost about a customer health meter. Because when you run, whether it's a SaaS-based business or a service that you want to be continually helpful, you want somebody engaging with you regularly, you want to know if customers are falling off or if they're ramping up their use. How can you do that with some of the technology tools?
Well, I think that, again, it goes back to the data that you're listening to. All the consumer events, as consumers interact with your products, they're creating these events that you can listen to. Over time, once your data set is big enough, you can use them to understand if are you getting the right adoption of the products, and certainly then start to build out predictive models or early warning systems to say, well, gosh, customers that are adopting us at this rate tend to renew. Customers that are adopting at this rate tend to not renew. So let's address this part of the problem and drive adoption sooner, because we can literally see how people are interacting with our apps, with our products, and then start to address that over time. One of the other ideas that I think is important for us as marketers is to, as Elisa was just talking about, is use your products from the experience of your consumers. So go sign up for your own newsletter. Go abandon something in your own shopping cart. See what that marketing experience is like so that you can figure out how to tune it. Like who's filled in a lead form on their own website to see how fast their sales team calls them back. I think that these kinds of also, field tests that you can put into place are powerful as well.
That's really, really good advice. I like that a lot. Sometimes I think we'd be scared by the results. Just a couple minutes left. Maybe one more question here for you, Elisa. Obviously, we're all familiar with the multi-device world. And somebody might be on their laptop or smartphone, tablet, wherever, some kiosk somewhere where they finally grab the internet in some forgotten place. at some airport. How do you manage and track and communicate with people based on the device that they're using?
Sure. Well, I mean, we're able to communicate with them how they want to be communicated with. So people, choosing their settings. Do they want to receive email? Do they want to receive push notification and SMS? Do they want all the above or none? And so we'll deliver the message to them based on that, and we'll deliver it to whatever device they're on. So that's incredibly important to us because by nature they're on a mobile device of some sort while they're traveling usually. So we want to make sure that they get the message with time sensitivity. Letting someone know that their date has changed after their flight took off is not going to be useful for them. So obviously delivery on time and making sure it's able to be read on whatever device they're on wherever they are is really important to us. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, very cool. Gordon, any final thoughts?
Well, I just, one great thought that we had talked about before, I think, is that it's really about taking advantage of the data, because the data is what drives relevancy to the consumer, and the relevancy is what drives the results. So really just thinking about how are we activating the data that we have available to us and using that to engage with our customers in a very personalized fashion.
Gordon, thank you very much. Elisa, thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, folks. Thank you. That was wonderful. Man has a firm handshake.